When Muslim doctor Amina just wanted to swim, she never imagined becoming the face of a movement. In a city where rules can oppress or liberate, her modest swimwear becomes a symbol of resistance that ignites a wave of change, proving that sometimes the deepest courage is simply being yourself in a world that demands conformity. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel, it's free, and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. Chapter 1. Amira's fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her navy blue burkini for the third time. The certified swim garment covered her body modestly while being specifically designed for water activities. Having just moved to the city, she had researched extensively before purchasing this particular model. Lightweight, quick-drying, and most importantly, compliant with safety regulations. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. Swimming had always been her sanctuary, a place where the weight of the world dissolved into chlorinated oblivion. Since childhood, she'd found peace in the rhythmic motion of her arms cutting through water, the gentle pressure against her skin as she glided forward. When Amira pushed open the heavy glass doors of the West Side community pool, the familiar scent of chlorine enveloped her like an old friend. Children's laughter echoed off the tiled walls, and sunlight streamed through the skylights, dancing across the rippling surface of the pool. Her confidence began to build as she approached the reception desk. A middle-aged man with thinning hair and a polo shirt emblazoned with the pool's logo glanced up, his welcoming smile faltering as his eyes registered her attire. "Membership card?" he asked, his voice noticeably cooler than it had been with the patron before her. Amira handed over her newly issued card, the plastic still stiff between her fingers. The receptionist, his name tag read Frank, examined it longer than seemed necessary. "Is there a problem?" she asked, the weight of countless similar interactions settling on her shoulders. Frank's eyes narrowed slightly. "That swimwear isn't allowed here." "Excuse me? That outfit, it's against our dress code policy." The conversation around them seemed to dim as several nearby patrons turned to stare. Amira felt her cheeks burn beneath their gaze, wondering if this was how it would always be, forever a spectacle, never just a swimmer. Chapter 2. "I don't understand," Amira said, her voice steady despite the hurricane building inside her chest. "This is a certified swim garment designed specifically for swimming. It meets all safety requirements." Frank crossed his arms. "Our policy states appropriate swimwear must be worn. This isn't appropriate." "What exactly makes it inappropriate?" Amira challenged, though she already knew the answer wouldn't satisfy her. "It covers too much. It's unusual. Makes other patrons uncomfortable." He lowered his voice. "Look, I don't make the rules." A woman with 2 children in tow shuffled awkwardly past them, pulling her kids closer as if Amira's presence posed some undefined threat. The gesture wasn't lost on Frank, who nodded toward them with a knowing look. "See, people are uncomfortable." Amira felt her throat tighten. "They're uncomfortable because you're creating a scene. This suit is made for swimming. There's nothing dangerous or inappropriate about it." "Rules are rules," Frank replied with finality. "You'll need to change into standard swimwear or leave." The injustice of it all hit Amira like a physical blow. She'd faced discrimination before, sidelong glances, whispered comments, but never such blatant exclusion from a public space. "May I speak to your manager?" she asked, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. She hated having to ask, hated being forced into the role of troublemaker. "She's not in today," Frank replied too quickly. "Look, there are other pools. Maybe try the Y on Elm Street. They might be more accommodating." The suggestion hung in the air between them. Go somewhere else, somewhere your kind belongs. Amira clutched her pool bag tighter, feeling the eyes of everyone in the lobby on her. Fight or flight, stay and make a stand, or retreat to safety. The answer crystallized in her mind as clearly as the water she so desperately wanted to dive into. This wasn't just about swimming anymore. Chapter 3. Amina didn't crumble under the weight of the manager's threat. Instead, as she gathered her bag and walked with measured steps toward the exit, she did something that would later prove pivotal. She documented everything. "Excuse me," she said, turning back to face the manager. "Could you please explain once more, for clarity, why exactly I'm being denied service? I'd like your full name as well." The manager hesitated, clearly uncomfortable now that Amina was recording on her phone. "This isn't necessary." "I believe it is," Amina replied calmly. "Since you're enforcing a policy that isn't posted anywhere, I'd like to understand it better." The elderly woman who had spoken up earlier stepped closer. "My name is Elaine Davidson. I've been a member here for 20 years, and I'm witnessing this discrimination. I'll be happy to provide a statement." 3 other patrons moved to stand beside Amina, expressing their support. The manager's face flushed deeper. "This is private property," he insisted. "We reserve the right to refuse service." "On what grounds?" Amina asked, her voice clear enough for the recording to capture. When the manager mumbled something about disruption and patron comfort, Amina thanked him politely and left, her head held high despite the tears threatening to spill. Outside in her car, she finally allowed herself a moment of weakness. Her hands shook as she placed them on the steering wheel, her throat tight with unspent emotion. The radio played softly in the background, some upbeat pop song about overcoming obstacles that now seemed like a cruel joke. She'd moved to this city 8 months ago for her residency at the local hospital. As a pediatrician in training, she'd faced subtle discrimination before, but nothing this blatant, this public. The memory of her father's voice drifted through her mind. "Remember who you are, Amina. Your worth is not determined by others' perception of you." He had been the one who taught her to swim in the first place, in the clear blue waters off the coast of their homeland, before war and displacement had scattered their family across 3 continents. She glanced at her phone, scrolling through contacts until she found her father's number. It would be midnight where he was now, not a good time to call. Instead, she typed a simple message, "Miss you, Baba. Thinking of you today." "You have options," she told herself, wiping away a tear. This isn't the end. The hospital corridors were mercifully quiet when Amina arrived for her evening shift. She moved through her rounds mechanically, checking vitals, reviewing charts, and speaking with worried parents about their children's conditions. But beneath her professional demeanor, the incident at the pool kept replaying in her mind. "You seem distracted tonight, Dr. Farah," observed Dr. Wilson, the attending physician, as they exited a patient's room. "Everything all right?" Amina hesitated. Dr. Wilson had been her mentor since she'd started her residency, a straight-talking woman in her 50s who had broken numerous glass ceilings in her own career. "I had an uncomfortable experience earlier today," Amina finally said, keeping her voice low. Dr. Wilson glanced around the busy hallway. "Come to my office after rounds, we can talk properly." Later, seated in Dr. Wilson's cramped office, walls lined with medical journals and children's artwork from grateful patients, Amina found herself recounting the entire pool incident. "That's outrageous," Dr. Wilson said when Amina finished, her gray eyes flashing with indignation. "Have you considered taking this further?" "I'm not sure how," Amina admitted. "Or if it's worth the effort. It's just a swimming pool." "It's never just about a swimming pool," Dr. Wilson interrupted gently. "Or just about a bus seat, or just about a water fountain. These small injustices are exactly how systemic discrimination persists." She reached for her phone. "You know Saima Khan, don't you? The journalist who did that piece on our pediatric cardiology program last year?" Amina nodded. She and Saima had become friends after the interview, occasionally meeting for coffee when their hectic schedules aligned. "You should talk to her," Dr. Wilson advised. "Not necessarily to make a public story, but to understand your options." That night, after her shift ended at 11 p.m., Amina called Saima from the hospital parking lot, the recording from the pool incident ready to share. Saima answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the hour. "Amina, it's been weeks. How are you?" "I've been better," Amina replied, and proceeded to explain what had happened. As she spoke, she could hear Saima's keyboard clicking in the background. "I'm sending you an encrypted link," Saima said when Amina finished. "Upload the recording there, and send me the pool's website and any membership documentation you have." "You're not planning to—" "I'm not planning anything yet," Saima assured her. "But this kind of story needs evidence, especially if you decide to pursue it." Amina hesitated. "I don't want to be seen as someone looking for attention or trying to cause trouble." "Standing up for your rights isn't causing trouble," Saima replied firmly. "It's ensuring others don't face the same humiliation. Besides, you're a pediatrician. How many Muslim girls do you think avoid learning to swim because they don't feel welcome at places like that pool?" The question lingered with Amina as she drove home through the quiet streets. She thought of the young patients she treated, children from various cultural backgrounds, including many Muslim families. How many skills and experiences were these children missing because of arbitrary rules and prejudices? Her apartment felt especially empty that night. She heated leftover biryani from the weekend and ate standing at her kitchen counter, scrolling through news on her tablet. A headline caught her eye: "Local swimming champion challenges pool's hijab ban." She clicked through to read about a high school student fighting a similar battle at her school's pool. The girl had eventually won, setting a precedent for the district. By the time Amina went to bed, her mind was made up. The next morning, she called the Civil Liberties Union before her shift began. The representative who answered sounded genuinely interested in her case. "This falls squarely within our anti-discrimination work," she explained. "We've handled similar cases before. Could you come in for a consultation tomorrow?" Amina agreed and then sent Saima a text. "I've decided to move forward, but I need your advice on how to frame this. Can we meet?" Over breakfast at a cafe near the hospital, Saima helped Amina draft a clear, factual account of the incident. "No emotional language," Saima advised. "Just the facts, times, names, and direct quotes as best as you remember them. Your recording will corroborate the key points." "What if this backfires?" Amina asked, stirring her untouched coffee. "What if I'm seen as difficult or oversensitive? This could affect my career." Saima's expression softened. "It could. But here's something I've learned in my years as a journalist. Silence protects the status quo, not the marginalized. Your silence won't protect you or the next woman who shows up at that pool in a burkini." By the time Amina met with the Civil Liberties Union lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Maya Rodriguez, she had compiled a comprehensive dossier: the recording, her written account, the pool's published rules, which mentioned nothing about religious swimwear, and statements from Elaine Davidson and 2 other witnesses who had been present. "This is remarkably thorough," Maya commented, reviewing the materials. "Most clients don't come this prepared." "I'm a doctor," Amina said with a slight smile. "Documentation is second nature." "We have 2 paths forward," Maya explained. "We can file a formal discrimination complaint, which might lead to a settlement but could take months, or we could employ what we call the sunlight strategy. Discrimination often withers under public scrutiny." What Amina didn't anticipate was how quickly her story would spread once Saima's article, titled "Doctor Denied Pool Access Over Modest Swimwear," was published. The piece was meticulously researched, featuring quotes from swim safety experts confirming that burkinis posed no hazard, statistics on how discriminatory pool policies impacted public health by discouraging certain communities from learning to swim, and powerful quotes from Amina about inclusivity and access. Within hours, the article had been shared thousands of times across social media platforms. By noon, 3 local television stations had called Amina requesting interviews. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications and messages of support. "I never expected this level of response," she told Saima during a hurried call between patient appointments. "It's resonating because it's so patently absurd," Saima replied. "The pool's position doesn't hold water, literally or figuratively." The hospital administration called Amina into a meeting that afternoon. Her heart raced as she entered the conference room, unsure whether she was about to be reprimanded for causing controversy. Instead, she found the hospital's PR director and the chief of pediatrics waiting with expressions of concern. "We want you to know that the hospital stands behind you completely," the chief said. "We've already issued a statement supporting diversity and inclusion in all public spaces. And we've received dozens of messages of support for you," added the PR director, sliding a folder across the table. "Many from patients' families. We thought you might want to see them." Later, scrolling through the messages, Amina was moved to tears by one in particular, from the mother of a teenage patient she had treated months earlier. "My daughter wants to be a doctor like you, Dr. Farah. Seeing you stand up for yourself shows her that she doesn't have to choose between her faith and her dreams." Outside the pool the following day, Elaine Davidson had organized what she called a swim-in protest. Despite the chilly weather, over 30 people gathered, many wearing various forms of modest swimwear in solidarity: rash guards, swim leggings, and even a few improvised burkinis. Among them were several of Amina's colleagues from the hospital. "I never intended to start a movement," Amina told a reporter who approached her at the edge of the crowd. "Movements often start with one person saying, 'This isn't right,'" the reporter observed. "Will you be participating in the swim-in?" Amina shook her head. "I'm here to support their right to protest, but I won't enter the facility until its policies change. I respect private property rights. I just want those rights to be exercised fairly and transparently." This measured response earned her even more public support. Social media users praised her class and restraint, contrasting it with the pool management's increasingly defensive statements. The pool's first official response came late that evening, a terse 3-paragraph statement posted to their website claiming they were reviewing their policies and that the incident had been mischaracterized. The statement emphasized safety concerns about non-standard swimwear, but notably failed to cite any specific safety regulations that burkinis violated. Public backlash was swift and brutal. Swimming experts from across the country weighed in, pointing out that modern burkinis were made from the same materials as conventional swimwear. Several families publicly canceled their memberships in solidarity with Amina. Local businesses that advertised with the pool began pulling their sponsorships. The pool's reputation was sinking faster than a stone in deep water. Then came the most unexpected development. Dr. Layla Hassan, an Olympic swimmer who had competed in a burkini, publicly offered to visit the pool and give a demonstration of how the swimwear functioned exactly like any other competitive gear. "I've swum in pools around the world wearing my burkini," Dr. Hassan wrote in her viral social media post. "I've broken records in this attire. The irony is that the very same fabric in my burkini is used in the high-tech swimsuits worn by Olympic athletes. The only difference is the coverage." She ended her post with a direct challenge. "I'll be in your city next week for a conference. I'd be happy to come to your pool and demonstrate the safety and functionality of modern burkinis. Or are you afraid I might prove you wrong?" Her post included a video of her training in her burkini, slicing through the water with powerful, practiced strokes that belied any notion that the garment impeded movement or posed a safety risk. The clip was viewed millions of times within days. Sports bloggers picked up the story. Even mainstream morning shows began featuring segments on the Great Burkini Debate, often with experts explaining that modern modest swimwear was indistinguishable from high-performance athletic wear in terms of material and safety. Behind the scenes, Amina received an unexpected call from the pool's owner, not the manager who had confronted her, but the actual proprietor of the facility, a businessman named Richard Chen, who owned several recreation centers across the state. "Dr. Farah," he began, his voice carefully neutral. "I've been out of the country and just returned to find my business at the center of a controversy. I'd like to hear your perspective directly." Amina recounted the incident calmly, sticking to the facts just as she had practiced with Saima. When she finished, there was a long silence on the line. "I owe you an apology," Chen finally said. "This is not how we train our staff to handle dress code concerns. And frankly, after reviewing our policy, I see nothing that should have prevented you from swimming in your certified swimwear." "I appreciate that," Amina replied cautiously, "but this isn't just about me anymore." "I understand. That's why I'd like to invite you to be part of the solution. We're revising our policies, and I'd value your input to ensure they're inclusive while maintaining appropriate safety standards." As Amina considered his offer, another call beeped through. The mayor's office. The pool management found themselves trapped in a riptide of public opinion they couldn't escape. Chapter 4. The mayor's call had surprised Amina. "This situation presents an opportunity for our city," Mayor Gloria Chen explained. "We've been working on a comprehensive anti-discrimination initiative for months, and your experience highlights exactly why it's needed." Over the next few days, Amina found herself unexpectedly thrust into municipal politics. She sat in meetings with city officials, civil rights attorneys, and community leaders, helping to draft language for new non-discrimination policies that would apply to all public recreational facilities. She learned the careful dance of advocacy, when to push, when to compromise, when to stand firm. "You have a natural talent for this," observed Councilwoman Diane Foster after a particularly contentious session. "Ever considered running for office?" Amina laughed. "One public battle at a time, please." Meanwhile, the controversy continued to expand beyond local boundaries. National news outlets picked up the story. A popular morning show invited Amina to appear alongside Dr. Layla Hassan, the Olympic swimmer who had offered to demonstrate burkini safety. "I'm a doctor, not a public speaker," Amina protested when Saima forwarded the invitation. "You're both now," Saima replied, "and your voice matters in this conversation." The television studio was smaller than Amina had imagined, hot under the bright lights. Dr. Hassan, sleek and confident in a tailored pantsuit, greeted her with a warm embrace. "Thank you for starting this conversation," the swimmer said. "I've competed in 12 countries and still face pool restrictions when I'm just trying to train." During the interview, Amina found her voice steadying as she explained the technical aspects of modest swimwear. "The materials are identical to conventional swimwear," she emphasized. "They're designed for water resistance and safety. Many non-Muslims use similar full-coverage suits for sun protection or personal comfort." Dr. Hassan demonstrated the fabric's quick-drying properties right on air, pouring a glass of water over a swatch of burkini material and wringing it nearly dry with one twist. If this were cotton or non-swim fabric, it would remain waterlogged, she explained to the visibly impressed host. That's an actual safety concern, but these specialized fabrics are designed specifically for aquatic use. After the segment aired, the pool's corporate office issued a more substantial statement. They announced an immediate review of all dress code policies, a formal apology to Amina, and the temporary reassignment of the manager who had confronted her. It's progress, Maya Rodriguez, the Civil Liberties Union attorney, told Amina over coffee. But we need concrete policy changes, not just damage control. What more can we push for, Amina asked. Staff training, explicit policy language about religious accommodations, and a community advisory board to prevent future incidents. Maya tapped her pen against her legal pad. They're feeling the pressure now. This is the time to secure lasting changes. The negotiations dragged on for another week. Meanwhile, Amina still had her residency duties. Between marathon hospital shifts, media appearances, and legal meetings, she barely had time to eat, let alone reflect on how dramatically her life had changed. It was during a rare quiet moment, grabbing lunch in the hospital cafeteria, that she encountered Dr. Wilson again. "You look exhausted," her mentor observed, sliding into the seat across from her. Amina nodded. "I haven't slept properly in days. Worth it?" Amina considered the question. "I think so, but I never expected this level of attention. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just found another pool." Dr. Wilson's expression turned serious. "You know, when I started here 30 years ago, they didn't have a women's locker room in the surgical department. I changed in the janitor's closet for months before I complained." "What happened when you did?" "They installed a flimsy partition in the men's locker room and called it progress." She smiled slightly. "So I kept pushing. It took 3 years, but they finally built a proper women's facility. Sometimes the most important changes start with one person refusing to accept the unacceptable." The conversation stayed with Amina as she entered the final round of negotiations with the pool management. This time, Richard Chen, the facility owner, was present, along with the mayor and city council. "We've drafted a comprehensive anti-discrimination policy," Chen announced, sliding copies across the table. "It explicitly permits religiously appropriate swimwear provided it meets basic safety standards." Amina reviewed the document carefully, noting with satisfaction the clear language about religious accommodations. "This is thorough," she acknowledged. "But what about implementation? Policy is meaningless without training and accountability." "We've thought of that," the mayor interjected. "The city is developing a comprehensive training program for all staff at public facilities, and we're establishing a citizen review board to handle complaints and ensure compliance." "And the manager who confronted me?" Amina asked. Chen glanced down. "He's been reassigned to our administrative office and has agreed to attend additional sensitivity training." "I don't want him fired," Amina clarified. "I want him educated." 3 weeks after being escorted from the community pool, Amina stood beside the mayor at the same facility's entrance. Camera flashes punctuated the moment as reporters gathered for what the mayor's office had called an important community announcement. The scene was surreal. The same entrance where she had faced humiliation now featured a backdrop with the city seal and a podium with microphones. Local officials, community leaders, and curious onlookers formed a semicircle around the speaker's area. Among them, Amina spotted Elaine Davidson, the elderly woman who had first spoken up for her, now beaming with pride. "Today marks a new chapter for our city," the mayor began, her voice amplified by microphones. "We're implementing a comprehensive anti-discrimination policy across all public facilities, ensuring everyone feels welcome regardless of their cultural or religious background." She outlined the key provisions of the new policy, emphasizing its inclusive approach to religious accommodations. As she spoke, Amina's thoughts drifted to the messages she'd received in recent weeks. From Muslim women across the country sharing similar experiences, from parents thanking her for creating more inclusive spaces for their children, from religious leaders of various faiths expressing solidarity. Amina's quiet dignity throughout the controversy had transformed her into an unexpected symbol for change. She hadn't sought the spotlight, but now that she stood in it, she understood its power. "Dr. Amina Farah," the mayor continued, gesturing toward her, "has shown us that courage sometimes means simply showing up as yourself. Her willingness to speak up has created a valuable conversation about inclusion in our community." Amina felt a flush of embarrassment at the praise, but maintained her composed expression as camera shutters clicked rapidly. She noticed her colleagues from the pediatric department standing off to the side, Dr. Wilson among them, offering encouraging smiles. The mayor detailed the concrete changes that would be implemented. The pool's board had undergone significant changes. The manager who had confronted Amina had been reassigned to administrative duties away from public interaction. More importantly, the facility had updated its rules to explicitly welcome diverse forms of modest swimwear, provided they met basic safety standards. As part of our settlement with the Civil Liberties Union, the mayor continued, all recreational facility staff will undergo cultural sensitivity training. We've also instituted a new position, a diversity coordinator who will review policies across all city recreational facilities. Maya Rodriguez, standing nearby, gave Amina a subtle thumbs up. They had pushed hard for these specific provisions, knowing they would create lasting structural change rather than just symbolic gestures. When it was Amina's turn to speak, she approached the microphone with the same quiet confidence she'd developed during her pediatric rounds. The speech she had prepared suddenly felt inadequate for the moment. Instead, she spoke from the heart. I never wanted to become the center of a controversy, she began. I just wanted to swim. A ripple of gentle laughter spread through the crowd. But sometimes small moments reveal larger truths about who we are as a community and who we aspire to be. She glanced at Elaine Davidson in the front row, who gave her an encouraging nod. Throughout this process, I've been moved by the overwhelming support from people of all backgrounds who recognize that inclusion strengthens our community rather than diminishing it. This has never been just about swimming pools or dress codes. It's about creating spaces where everyone can participate fully in public life without compromising their religious beliefs or cultural practices. Amina paused, gathering her thoughts before continuing. Water doesn't discriminate, she said, her voice steady and clear. It holds everyone equally. Perhaps that's why swimming pools have historically been such important sites for civil rights battles. They represent our shared humanity. She spoke briefly about the history of pool segregation in America, drawing parallels to contemporary exclusionary practices. When we deny access, whether explicitly through rules or implicitly through unwelcoming environments, we perpetuate inequality and miss the opportunity to learn from each other's differences. A moment of spontaneous applause interrupted her remarks. When it subsided, she concluded with a forward-looking message. The changes announced today matter not because they benefit me personally, but because they'll make this community more accessible for countless others. I hope our experience inspires other cities to proactively review their policies before similar incidents occur elsewhere. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed around her with questions, but the pool's staff respectfully cleared a path. Dr. Farah will be using our facility now, the new manager announced. She's waited long enough for her swim. In the locker room, Amina changed into her burkini, conscious of the symbolic weight of this moment. Another woman, perhaps in her 30s, wearing a modest tankini, approached hesitantly. I just wanted to say thank you, she said quietly. My daughter wants to learn to swim, but she's always been self-conscious about wearing revealing swimwear. Seeing you stand up for your rights has inspired her. Amina smiled. Bring her next time. The water is for everyone. When she stepped out onto the pool deck, she was relieved to find it relatively normal. Some people glanced her way, but most were absorbed in their own activities. The water gleamed under the skylight, inviting and unconcerned with the politics that had swirled around it. The water embraced her as she dove in, cool and welcoming. She swam lap after lap, each stroke a small victory. The tension of the past weeks dissolved in the rhythmic movement of her body through water, the meditative focus of controlled breathing. Nearby, a young girl in a similar burkini watched with wide eyes. When Amina finished her swim and climbed out of the pool, the girl approached her shyly. You swim really good, she said, her dark eyes wide with admiration. My mom got me this swimsuit after she saw you on TV. She said now I can learn to swim too. Amina knelt down to the child's level, water dripping from her swim cap. What's your name? Zara, the girl replied, fidgeting with the edge of her swim cap. Well, Zara, the water is waiting for you, and it's wonderful. Amina watched as Zara's mother helped her into the shallow end, the girl's initial trepidation giving way to delighted splashing. Something tightened in Amina's chest, a recognition that this moment, this simple act of a child learning to swim, represented exactly what she had been fighting for. As she showered and changed afterward, Amina overheard two older women talking by the lockers. I don't see what the big deal was about her swimsuit, one said. Looks perfectly fine to me. People fear what they don't understand, her friend replied, but they can learn. Look how quickly things changed once everyone saw how ridiculous the ban was. Amina smiled to herself as she packed up her things. Change could happen quickly when injustice was exposed to light, but she knew from her medical training that real healing, the deep, systemic kind, required ongoing attention and care. As Amina walked to her car, she realized that change rarely happened in grand, dramatic moments. More often, it happened like this: one person, one policy, one conversation at a time. The cumulative effect of small actions could reshape institutions and communities in profound ways. Later that evening, after answering dozens of congratulatory messages, Amina finally had a moment to call her father. "I saw you on the international news," he said, his voice thick with emotion despite the crackling connection. "Your mother would have been so proud." "I didn't do anything extraordinary, Baba," she protested. "Standing up for dignity is always extraordinary, Habibti," he replied, especially when it would be easier to stay silent. After they hung up, Amina made herself a cup of chai and stepped onto her small apartment balcony. The city lights sparkled below, thousands of individual bulbs creating a tapestry of illumination. Like change, she thought, individual actions combining into something greater than their parts. Her phone chimed with a text from Saima. "Your story just got picked up by a national news network. Ready for round 2? Amina smiled as she typed her response. "As ready as I'll ever be. Some waves are worth making." She glanced at the frame on her wall, the newspaper article about the pool incident, now surrounded by dozens of messages from women around the country sharing similar experiences. What had begun as one woman's humiliation had transformed into a movement that was slowly creating ripples across the nation. The following week, Amina received an invitation to speak at a conference on religious freedom and public accommodation. The week after that, a local school board consulted her about their athletic dress code policies. A national modest sportswear company asked her to consult on their new swimwear line. "You've become an accidental activist," Dr. Wilson observed during a rare quiet moment in the hospital break room. "Temporary activist," Amina corrected. "My first love is still medicine." Yet she couldn't deny the satisfaction she felt each time she heard about another facility reviewing its policies, another community having important conversations about inclusion. Perhaps this was a different kind of healing, one that addressed social systems rather than individual bodies, but healing nonetheless. Sometimes, Amina reflected, the most powerful act of resistance was simply insisting on being yourself in a world that wanted you to be invisible. And sometimes, the deepest waters were the ones you never planned to navigate. On the 1-month anniversary of the incident, Saima suggested they celebrate. "Celebrate what? That I got kicked out of a pool?" Amina asked with a laugh. "That you changed a discriminatory policy and inspired similar reviews across the country," Saima corrected. "Besides, I have a confession to make." "What's that?" "I don't actually know how to swim," Saima admitted. "Always been afraid of the water, but watching you fight for your right to be in that pool made me think maybe it's time I learned." Amina picked up her phone and added another line to her text. "P.S. Swimming lesson tomorrow." Saima's reply came immediately. "Absolutely, I've always wanted to learn." The next day, Amina met Saima at the pool. The journalist looked decidedly nervous in her new rash guard and swim shorts. "I feel ridiculous," Saima confessed. "Like everyone's staring at me." "They're not," Amina assured her, recognizing the echo of her own earlier anxieties. "And even if they were, so what? You have every right to be here." She led Saima to the shallow end and patiently began teaching her the basics of floating and breath control. Other swimmers passed by without a second glance, exactly as it should be. As Saima gradually gained confidence in the water, Amina caught sight of Zara on the other side of the pool, now taking formal lessons with an instructor. The girl waved excitedly when she spotted Amina, proudly demonstrating her newly learned backstroke. This, Amina thought, was the true victory. Not the policy changes or the media attention, but these ordinary moments of joy and learning that would have been impossible without confronting discrimination head-on. The water, after all, was waiting for everyone. From the community pool, Amina stood beside the mayor at the same facility's entrance. Camera flashes punctuated the moment as reporters gathered for what the mayor's office had called an important community announcement. "Today marks a new chapter for our city," the mayor began, her voice amplified by microphones. "We're implementing a comprehensive anti-discrimination policy across all public facilities, ensuring everyone feels welcome regardless of their cultural or religious background." Amina's quiet dignity throughout the controversy had transformed her into an unexpected symbol for change. She hadn't sought the spotlight, but now that she stood in it, she understood its power. "Dr. Amina Farah," the mayor continued, "has shown us that courage sometimes means simply showing up as yourself." Her willingness to speak up has created a valuable conversation about inclusion in our community. The pool's board had undergone significant changes. The manager who had confronted Amina had been reassigned to administrative duties away from public interaction. More importantly, the facility had updated its rules to explicitly welcome diverse forms of modest swimwear, provided they met basic safety standards. As part of the settlement with the Civil Liberties Union, the pool staff would undergo cultural sensitivity training. They'd also instituted a new position, a diversity coordinator who would review policies across all city recreational facilities. When it was Amina's turn to speak, she approached the microphone with the same quiet confidence she'd developed during her pediatric rounds. "I never wanted to become the center of a controversy," she began. "I just wanted to swim." A ripple of gentle laughter spread through the crowd. But sometimes small moments reveal larger truths about who we are as a community and who we aspire to be. She glanced at Elaine Davidson in the front row, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Water doesn't discriminate," Amina continued. "It holds everyone equally. Perhaps that's why swimming pools have historically been such important sites for civil rights battles. They represent our shared humanity." After the ceremony, Amina changed into her burkini in the locker room. This time, there were no stares, no confrontations. The water embraced her as she dove in, cool and welcoming. She swam lap after lap, each stroke a small victory. Nearby, a young girl in a similar burkini watched with wide eyes. When Amina finished her swim and climbed out of the pool, the girl approached her shyly. "You swim really good," she said. "My mom got me this swimsuit after she saw you on TV. She said now I can learn to swim too." Amina knelt down to the child's level. "What's your name?" "Zara," the girl replied. "Well, Zara, the water is waiting for you. And it's wonderful." As Amina watched Zara tentatively enter the pool with her mother, she realized that change rarely happened in grand, dramatic moments. More often, it happened like this: one person, one policy, one conversation at a time. Later that evening, Amina received a text from Saima. "Your story just got picked up by a national news network. Ready for round 2? Amina smiled as she typed her response. "As ready as I'll ever be. Some waves are worth making." She glanced at the frame on her wall. The newspaper article about the pool incident, now surrounded by dozens of messages from women around the country sharing similar experiences. What had begun as one woman's humiliation had transformed into a movement that was slowly creating ripples across the nation. Sometimes, Amina reflected, the most powerful act of resistance was simply insisting on being yourself in a world that wanted you to be invisible. And sometimes the deepest waters were the ones you never planned to navigate. She picked up her phone again and added another line to her text. "P.S. Swimming lesson tomorrow?" Saima's reply came immediately. "Absolutely, I've always wanted to learn." The water, after all, was waiting for everyone. Wow, what a story! And there is more coming. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss a new stories.